All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We are taking a tour of the human brain. But our map, believe it or not, isn't some dense scientific paper. It's a poem called Top Jelly.
So can a poem really unlock the secrets of your brain? I mean, can art and science actually team up to give us a fresh look at this 3-pound universe that's sitting inside our heads? Well, let's dive in and see. We're going to start with our first line of defense.
Okay, so our tour begins from the outside and works its way in. Before we even get to the brain itself, the top jelly, the poem sets the stage by describing this incredible fortress that nature has built to keep it safe.
I just love this phrasing. Nature procured us a helmet with calcareous content. It sounds so official, right? But what in the world is a helmet with calcareous content?
It's the skull. Of course it is. Calcareous is just a fancy way of saying it's made of calcium, bone. What's so cool here is how the poem frames it. It's not just part of your skeleton, it's a piece of purpose-built equipment, a helmet, and it has one single critical job: protection.
And you know what? The skull isn't going it alone. The poem points out this whole system of defense. You've got the follicular strands, that's our hair, then the pigmented layer, our skin, and then on the inside there's a liquid cushion, the cerebrospinal fluid, which acts like a shock absorber. And finally, the dura, which is this super tough membrane. It's like the final layer of armor. It's just a brilliant piece of natural engineering, really.
Okay, we've made it past security. Now we get to the main event. We're going inside the helmet to look at the jelly itself, the very thing that creates our entire reality. So, how does this squishy, wrinkly thing actually work?
This line is amazing. It takes something incredibly complex, like all of neuroscience, and just boils it down to two simple, powerful actions: diffusing chemicals and passing a current. That's it. That's the bedrock of how we think. So here's what's happening. Literally trillions of times a second, an electrical signal, a little spark, zips down a neuron. When it gets to the end, it hits a tiny gap called a synapse. To get across, it releases these chemicals that just float over to the next cell. And boom, that chemical message kicks off a new electrical signal. And that's it. That's a thought. That's how it travels.
And from all that buzzing, that constant electrical and chemical chatter, everything we experience comes into being. The poem lists our senses, smell, hearing, sight, but then it makes this huge leap to the really big stuff: awareness, cognition. Our entire reality is built on top of that simple process.
But, and there's always a but, right? There's a catch. Having this supercomputer in your head is not a free ride. And this is where the poem's tone starts to shift. It goes from talking about the wonders of the brain to its incredible costs and its weaknesses.
So the poem really lays out this central trade-off. On one side, you have all this power, the ability to achieve all of our wishes. But the price is steep. It takes forever to develop. It costs, as the poem says, more than a dime to run, and it makes us really vulnerable to shifts in our mood.
The voracious mass plucks oxygen from the supply. Voracious, that is the perfect word, isn't it? It just captures this relentless hunger. Our brain is constantly, nonstop demanding resources.
And this is really a key point to understand. Think about this. The brain is only about 2% of your body's weight, but it uses up something like 20% of your oxygen and calories. It is an absolute energy hog. That constant, massive demand is what makes it so incredibly high maintenance.
So, what happens when this super high-maintenance, high-demand system gets pushed too far? Well, the poem gets into that next, and it shows us just how fragile that delicate balance really is. And this is where the poem gives us this surprisingly modern and simple recipe for mental well-being. To maintain such fine balance, it needs little stress, good chemistry, and no weeds. It's almost like a doctor's note, but written in verse.
So if you break it down, the recipe for a healthy brain is pretty clear. First, low stress. Obvious, right? Second, good chemistry, which means good food, good sleep, healthy neurochemical function. And finally, no weeds. And that means getting rid of harmful inputs, whether that's actual toxins or just negative thought patterns.
And look, the poem does not pull any punches about what happens if you ignore that recipe. The consequences are stark. When that balance is lost, the whole system risks sinking into apathy, confusion, and drinking. This isn't just about having a bad day. It's a genuine downward spiral, a kind of system shutdown. But it's not all doom and gloom. The poem doesn't just leave us in that dark place. In its final lines, it turns toward hope.
It suggests that even from a spiraling trance, there's a way back. There's a path to recovery.
And what's really interesting is that it gives us two different paths, but they work together. You've got the path of science, and you've got the path of human connection. And the poem makes it clear that both are totally vital for pulling someone out of that spiral.
So first, there's this nod to science. The poem actually mentions magnetic resonance, an MRI, as a tool that might one day help us figure out exactly how the brain can heal itself. This really represents all the hope we put into technology and research to solve these deep biological puzzles.
But after all that science and biology, the poem's final piece of advice is just so deeply fundamentally human. It basically says, look, while we're waiting for science to figure it all out, the most powerful thing you can do right now is connect with other people. It says we should endeavor to befriend someone new. Just reach out.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? This whole poetic journey through our own minds has shown us this organ that's incredibly powerful, but also just profoundly fragile. It needs science, for sure, but it also needs kindness, less stress, and friendship. So the question isn't just some abstract idea, it's personal. For you. How are you going to care for your top jelly?